Hello, everyone. Today I want to talk about Trump's Easter deadline. What is he thinking? And I'll start with what you might be thinking. Number one, you might be thinking that it's bad to impose limits of time and resources when trying to solve a complex problem. Number two, you may think people and teams perform better when they don't have constraints because constraints cause panic. They can give a sense of futility. And three, you may say this especially applies in life and death situations. Let me start with number three. Life and death is actually a better situation for imposing tough deadlines and tight constraints on solving a problem. And that's because everybody involved, all the scientists, all the technicians, all the economists, emergency responders, hospital, everybody involved in the project has a firm belief in the goal, the cause. The cause that we're all fighting for is not in doubt. Sometimes in business, imposing deadlines and things may not be as effective because a lot of people see the goal as not real. They don't really kind of own it or internalize it and believe in what the end goal is that you're trying to achieve. So in those cases, yes, some of the problem, putting too much pressure on, too many time constraints can cause people to kind of panic a little bit or just sort of throw their hands up and say, wow, this is impossible and it's pointless, so why bother? So again, wherever it's a dire situation where the team completely buys into the end goal of what we're trying to accomplish, then that's actually life and death makes it a better situation. Now, I will refer to the Apollo 13. I've been thinking a lot about Apollo 13 as I'm watching all this unfold and thinking about what it means or what it's going to look like when we go back to work. And, I'd suggest you check out some of these clips. The first clip that I is called "Fit This into the Hole for This with Nothing But That," and that's where one of the technicians or engineers in the control room, or several of them, bring a problem to their manager, Ed Harris, and Ed Harris is trying to, up until now, everyone's focused on bringing the capsule back. The capsule's damaged, it's broken, they're trying to bring it back to save the men's lives. These gentlemen noticed a problem with the oxygen, or the scrubber that removes carbon dioxide from the air. So the life support systems, they bring this problem to Ed Harris, and Ed Harris delegates it. He doesn't get involved, he doesn't try to fix it. Maybe it's not his area of expertise. Maybe he trusts them to handle this level of a problem. He's certainly more occupied. He's definitely occupied with other things. So the guidance he gives them is, I suggest you figure out how to fit a round peg into a square hole and do it fast. That's his. Now, you see the men go downstairs to the probably mechanical engineers, technicians room, pours a box full of materials and parts on a table and states, we have to make this fit into a hole for this, and using nothing but that, let's do it. They dive right in, they figure it out, they come up with a solution. They have to document the solution, so they write a detailed procedure. And then if you think about it, you have the solution, then the implementation. So it's similar to a vaccine or a test. We now have a way of testing, but how do we roll this out around the country? Two different problems, sort of. So anyway, they present the procedure to the ground control people. It's detailed enough that they can verbally walk the astronauts through to do the procedure. And you see Ed Harris, the leader, the manager, just observing from a distance. He never gets involved because they're handling it. They're doing a great job. And, it's one problem he doesn't have to worry about any longer. So that's one sort of dynamic example of what's going on. That's the ideal situation that you want to happen in all complex problem solving. You want your people who are experts in what they do to work together as a team towards a common goal. And that was be an example of exactly how you wanted to do. And the constraints were tough. saying we're going to do something no one's ever done before. No one's ever thought that we would have to do this. Nothing was designed this way. We got to figure it out. They accepted the goal. They believed in the cause, and they all worked together. So there was no reason for the manager to get involved. So in that scene too, the time and resource constraints forced the team to come up with an innovative solution. If they had all the time in the world, and then they could have ordered things, not then, but now we could order things on Amazon. We could find the ideal, pieces of material, the ideal fasteners, tools to do it. But they didn't have that option because they could only work with what was in the capsule with the astronauts. The next scene is failure is not an option. Check that one out. And here you see it begins with Ed Harris drawing on the board. Think about the infamous or the famous, I guess, the curve, the two curves. So he draws a graph on the board to illustrate what's happening, and he states the problem. He states the problem, and he forces accountability on his team. And what do I mean by that? It's something I've used in business before. Sometimes when you give your team a difficult problem, there's a human kind of reaction to deflect. Well, the challenges are too great. So you sort of want to kind of bounce the problem back and say, well, we can't do this. It's just survival instinct, human nature to reject the challenge, to reject the problem. And what he does when I say forces accountability is he's basically making the statement, if we don't do it, nobody does it. There's nobody that we can take this to. There's nobody else. We could sit here all day and think about blame. We can sit here all day and think about how it's impossible. But if we don't accept this challenge and do something, they're going to die. There's nobody else for us to turn to. So that's what I mean when I say accountability. And, so he states the problem. And when he forces accountability, he says, gentlemen, that's not acceptable. Now, the reaction from his team. Now, these are NASA scientists and technicians and engineers, the best in their field, highly educated, highly qualified. Nobody in the world has experience like they do. How do they respond to gentlemen that's not acceptable? They start grumbling. The whole group of them are grumbling, blah, 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 and it's obviously not a productive thing. They're, sort of grumbling, oh, this is really difficult. How are we ever going to do this? One voice, one person spoke up and said, power. Okay, we don't know what the other guys were talking about. They each have different areas of responsibility. I'm sure that they were emphasizing their area and their specific concern. One man spoke up and said, power. If we don't have power, we don't have anything. He brought clarity to the room. But the other, if you notice, Ed Harris pays attention. He hears them out. Some of the other guys actually throw out objections. Well, you can't shut it down. You can't. So here's one man proposing solutions while the rest of them are basically trying to shoot down his idea. Now, yes, if there's real problems, you have to consider those. You have to think those. But there's really a different mindset between throwing out problems to try to kill an idea as opposed to contributing to the success and the fleshing out, if you will, of an idea. So, Ed Harris looks at the man. He had to make the call. He's the leader. The rest of them weren't really on board yet, but he's the one in charge. He had to make the call. He said, we're going to do this. So the experts quiet down, and you start to see more of a shift towards, thinking about the solutions as opposed to the problem. So Ed Harris in that scene, the first scene, the manager didn't really get involved. He let the people do their job. In this scene, he's not doing their jobs for them, but he's responsible for the team, not the individual tasks. So he sets the tone. He tries to, he makes sure they understand excuses don't help. Problems, you need to get your team focused on the solutions. If as far as the coronavirus, you can watch TV, you can listen to a doctor over here, or an infectious disease expert over here, individuals saying things like, we have to let the curve run out. There's no way, but here's the problem. How long is that going to take? We don't know. We don't know. So if you can't tell me how long we have to wait for the curve to work its way out, then that's not a helpful thing. I'll talk about that more later. Okay, the final scene to check out is work the problem, another well-known phrase. So I believe what they set up this scene was there was panic in the capsule. The astronauts themselves realized the gravity of their situation and they were panicking a bit. And when the scene opens on YouTube, you can see that there's clearly panic, unrest among the team in ground control. And, they're basically facing a dire task. People are going to die. It looks impossible. We have a broken spaceship. Nobody can go there and fix it. There's not even air. There's not even oxygen there for these men to breathe if that capsule fails. So what does Ed Harris do? Ed Harris brings calm. He starts to suggest, when he says work the problem, and as far as an example for that, he starts telling them a real basic, almost like a wax on, wax off kind of thing from the Karate Kid. He says, let's look at that from a standpoint of status. I want to review status. I want to know the status of every single thing. And it's a rational response, because what he also says, he wants to work on good information, not emotional gut feel guess. He wants to have the good information, but it's also a good response in management and controlling the team, because it takes everybody's brain, who's right now, your brains are paralyzed. When you're in a situation that you haven't trained for, haven't prepared for, never saw before, your lives are at risk, your brain literally paralyzes because it doesn't know how to deal with that. And what he does is he gives them a way to refocus their brains and do their jobs. So each one of those men, experts in their field, Ed Harris could not get in there and do any one of their jobs for them. He might have won, but he's their leader. They need a leader. They need someone to set the tone. They need someone to pull the team together and get the team to perform at its best. So if we talk about the curves, I started saying some experts, medical people, will say, rightly so, it makes sense from their perspective, that you have to let the curve run its course. If we go back to work before the curve is finished, you're just going to restart the virus, and that sounds reasonable. But the reality is, and I did a video on flatten the curve versus the economy, you can't just pick one over the other. Okay, they're not even mutually exclusive. If you can't say it's all public health, forget the economy, because if our economy dies, if our economy collapses, the middle class disappears. We have rich people at the top, we have poor people at the bottom, and nobody in the middle. And we see that in lots of places in the world. And those places in the world don't have good public health. And vice versa. If we don't have good public health, if people are getting sick by mass numbers every single day, that's not going to be good for the economy. I mean, companies can't count on their workforce being there, and people can't make a paycheck. So they're not mutually exclusive either. They are in tension. There's a tension between the two. But if you listen to someone who says, let the curve run its course, it's the only thing we can do to stop this virus. The problem is, if you're in charge, if you're the president, and someone tells you that, your next question should be, how long will that take? If you can give me an idea of the time period to do that, then I have a bunch of people, I have resources, we can say, this is the guideline, this is the problem, we need 2 months, figure it out. And they have something to work on. But if you just leave it open-ended with no time constraints whatsoever, then you have a lot of very talented, very valuable people with literally nothing to do. Or their brains just shut off because you say, okay, we're just going to wait. We're not going to do anything. We're going to wait. And so sure, we'll make sure we try to get ventilators to hospitals and masks, and we'll do all these sort of tactical things to try to deal with the sickness, but nobody's doing anything to fix the big problem if you're just sitting around waiting. So there has to be a deadline. And when I say there'll be a lot of people with nothing to do, think about this. What will it look like when we go back to work? It's not going to be like it was before. It can't be. There has to be certain things put in place to continue to try to limit the spread of the disease. Our mindsets as citizens have already changed. We're all thinking about hand washing and safe distances and protecting ourselves, good hygiene and social distance. So that will do a lot. Even if we just go back to work and do nothing else, that will help. Will it stop it? Of course not. It won't. But just the habits and the change of mindset. The shutdown was necessary for a time just to put that in. And we can see today there's still some people that don't get it. We still see people congregating in large groups and things like that. But as a whole, largely we've accomplished that. We talk about South Korea and they're lauded for all the great testing they did. Yeah, they did great testing, but what else did they do? South Korea has in place, they track people's movements. When someone tests positive, they use cell phone records, they use credit card records, and they also have a huge network of video cameras, security cameras all over the cities, and with facial recognition software. So when someone tests positive, they announce this person was here, here, and here on these dates. If you've been in those places yourself, then you need to come and get tested. The facial recognition, I mean, they use it for law enforcement. If someone commits a crime, like today, here in the States, we have the traffic cameras, and even that's a big controversy. The traffic camera takes a photo of your license plate, and if you go through a red light or you speed or something, they send you a citation in the mail with a photo of your license plate, and even a photo of whoever was behind the wheel, and said, pay your fine. It's indisputable. We have the evidence. What they do in South Korea, they do that with more than just traffic violations. They have them on the streets. If you commit a petty crime, they see you committing the crime. Facial recognition software tells them who you are, and they write a citation or a court summons or whatever, and they send it to you. That's not America. Okay, so yes, we need more testing and we need more data, but we can't implement the kinds of things. We won't implement the kinds of things that they did in South Korea. In China, they completely sealed off a city, a city bigger than New York City. Right now, New York City is clearly our hotspots. We are United States of America. We're not going to do to New York what they did to Wuhan, but we're going to do something. We may have released certain, areas before others. We may try to limit people's travel and ask them to limit. Testing will obviously be a key part of that. Testing is going to have to get to be very quick and almost on-demand testing. So I don't know what the answers are, but my point in all that is there's a lot more to it than an infectious disease person in their perspective. There's a lot of things that our government and our healthcare community are working on that's going to help them. And what's important in doing all that is having a goal in mind. When you set a date, when you say we're going back to work on Easter, that forces all the activities of people trying to meet that goal, as long as they believe in the goal. And it's pretty obvious they should believe in the goal. I mean, I think anyone in the know in this situation wholly understands and believes in the importance of protecting public health and the economy, because they're intertwined. You can't separate the two. So the deadline is good. It is somewhat arbitrary. I don't know what he based that on. It sounds like Trump, he based it on theatrics, Easter. Okay? But it can change. If we get to that goal, if we get closer to that date, maybe we move it up. Maybe we push it out. It's not like Apollo 13 where the oxygen's going to run out in an exact period of time and the soldier or the astronauts are going to die. It's not like that. Okay, so it is somewhat, there's discretion in where we place that goal, but we should all rally behind the goal. We should all believe in the goal. Honestly, it doesn't matter what we think. I mean, it's more important that the people that are involved in delivering the solutions buy into this goal and buy into the constraints and work together as a team to solve this problem. Now, I did a video of Trump versus Fauci, and towards the end of it, you can see some of my frustration with the media. And part of that is because the way the media is reporting, they're not trying to understand what's going on and inform us the way I'm informing you now. What they're trying to do is the normal, let's sell news and, let's do some contention. Oh, Trump and Fauci, they don't agree. They're basically fracturing the team. So you have the people, that task force, trying to have a teamwork like the first scene in Apollo 13 that I recommended, and you have people on the outside, critics that I call, like the media, like other people in medicine and healthcare, trying to fracture that team. And that's a problem. Okay, that's not helpful. That's destructive. And so if you hear a medical person or any sort of expert on TV, and they're engaging that sort of, chipping away, trying to attack the spirit of teamwork within our government, don't listen to them. Okay, there's a lot of them. Most of them are very reputable, and they acknowledge that we need to shoot for a certain date. They acknowledge and they respectfully give their perspective and their opinion on the problem. They're the people you want to listen to. Okay, well, so hopefully that helps. Check out the Apollo 13. I mean, we're all in shutdown mode anyway, so it gives you something you can watch. When you watch that movie, look at it from the perspective of problem solving, team building, experts in their field, very, very qualified, talented, educated people, and how they pulled together to do impossible things. And that's what our government's trying to do right now. All right. Thank you. Talk to you later.